For centuries, the Nile River has been the lifeline of Northeast Africa, sustaining agriculture, economies, and civilizations. Today, rising populations, climate change, and development pressures have intensified competition for its waters. At the center is Ethiopia's $5 billion Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Africa's largest hydroelectric project. A national symbol for Ethiopia, it is also a source of fierce disputes with Egypt and Sudan. This video explores Ethiopia's ambitions, the engineering breakthroughs, the hurdles of construction, and the ongoing diplomatic tensions surrounding Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Ethiopia's vision. The Nile stretches for more than 6,600 kilometers across 11 countries, but its most crucial waters rise in the Ethiopian highlands. The Blue Nile, which contributes nearly 85% of the river's total flow during the rainy season, begins in Ethiopia, yet for much of modern history, the country had little control over how the river was used. This imbalance stems from colonial-era agreements dating back to 1929 and 1959, treaties that overwhelmingly favored Egypt and Sudan while excluding upstream nations altogether. For Ethiopians, these agreements became a source of lasting resentment, a reminder that they were denied a say over the very waters that gushed from their own land. That frustration began to transform into ambition in the early 2000s when Prime Minister Meles Zenawi announced Ethiopia's intention to reclaim its rightful stake in the river's future. The idea was not only to resolve the country's severe electricity shortage, but also to assert sovereignty and inspire a sense of national rebirth. Originally called the Millennium Dam, it was later renamed the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a name that spoke not just to its size, but to its symbolism. Ethiopia envisioned Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as a turning point in its history, a leap toward energy independence, industrial growth, and political recognition on the world stage. More than infrastructure, it was meant to be a declaration, a signal to the region and to the world that Ethiopia would no longer be excluded from decisions over the Nile. Engineering an African giant. Turning this vision into reality demanded engineering on an almost unimaginable scale. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a roller-compacted concrete gravity dam stretching 1,780 meters across and rising to a height of nearly 175 meters. The chosen location, a narrow gorge on the Blue Nile, provided the perfect natural foundation for such an undertaking. Constructing it required more than 10 million cubic meters of concrete, laid in massive horizontal layers that allowed the structure to grow quickly without the need for traditional curing processes. But the main dam is only part of the story. To hold back a reservoir as vast as Lake Tana, Ethiopia's largest natural lake, engineers added a second structure, a 5-kilometer-long auxiliary saddle dam built as a rockfill embankment faced with concrete. Together, the two barriers created a reservoir with the staggering capacity of 74 billion cubic meters of water. Powering the project are 13 massive turbines capable of producing over 5,000 megawatts of electricity, enough to generate around 16 terawatt hours annually. To put that into perspective, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam can produce enough power to light up more than 40 million African homes, or to meet the entire annual electricity needs of countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania combined. The dam was designed with resilience in mind. Seismic reinforcements were incorporated into its foundation to guard against earthquakes in the seismically active East African Rift. A series of spillways and emergency outlets were added to manage floodwaters, expanded during construction to address concerns from downstream neighbors. Engineers also had to grapple with the Blue Nile's heavy silt loads, creating sediment traps and bypass systems to protect the dam's longevity and preserve downstream ecosystems. Every design choice reflected not only Ethiopia's technical ambition, but also the political weight resting on the project's success. A nation pays the price. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not simply its scale, but the way it was financed. Unlike many mega projects across the developing world, which rely heavily on international loans and donors, Ethiopia made the decision to fund Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam largely from within its own borders. Citizens were encouraged to purchase bonds and contribute through national fundraising campaigns, while members of the diaspora were asked to support from abroad. The effort turned into a symbol of unity, binding Ethiopians from all walks of life to a common goal. For once, the country was not just building a dam, it was building its future with its own hands and wallets. That said, international assistance was not absent. A $1 billion loan from China's Exim Bank supported the purchase of turbines and electrical components, but the core financing remained domestic. Construction officially began in April 2011 under the leadership of the Italian firm WeBuild, then known as Cellini Impregilo. The Blue Nile was successfully diverted in 2013, and within a few years, towering concrete walls began to rise from the riverbed. Yet the project was never without turbulence. Leadership changes, technical recalibrations, and political disputes periodically slowed progress. In 2018, Ethiopia was rocked when Semegnu Bekele, the project's chief engineer and a national hero, was found dead under mysterious circumstances. His death cast a heavy shadow, but work pressed on under new leadership. In February 2022, the first turbine began to generate electricity, marking a historic moment for Ethiopia. Over the following years, more turbines came online, and the massive reservoir was filled gradually over 4 rainy seasons. In October 2024, Ethiopia announced the final stage of reservoir filling was complete, despite loud protests from Egypt and Sudan. By mid-2025, construction was declared finished, with the inauguration scheduled for September 2025. For Ethiopians, the moment symbolized not just the completion of a dam, but the culmination of decades of determination. The price of progress. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, however, has not come without costs. Tens of thousands of people were displaced by the rising waters of the reservoir, uprooted from ancestral lands that had sustained families for generations. The Ethiopian government reported that compensation and relocation programs were put in place, but independent observers noted significant gaps in support. For many, the transition meant hardship and uncertainty. Environmentalists have raised their own alarms. By capturing silt that would normally flow downstream, the dam threatens to reduce soil fertility in floodplains, with implications for agriculture in Sudan. The alteration of seasonal floods could also disrupt ecosystems and fisheries that have adapted to the river's rhythms over centuries. Furthermore, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam sits near a seismically active region, which, while accounted for in the design, will require vigilant monitoring as the dam ages. Climate change adds another layer of uncertainty, as irregular rainfall and prolonged droughts could challenge the dam's ability to deliver reliable power while maintaining water stability downstream. Despite these concerns, the potential benefits are vast. Ethiopia's chronic energy shortage, where more than 60% of the population lacks reliable electricity, could finally be addressed. National electricity output will more than double, powering new industries, improving agricultural productivity, and transforming daily life. The country also aims to become a net exporter of power, with agreements already in place to sell electricity to Sudan, Kenya, and Djibouti. Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam clean, renewable energy will reduce dependence on fossil fuels and help mitigate regional carbon emissions. For Sudan, the dam promises reduced flooding and a more consistent flow of water during dry seasons. For Ethiopia, it represents not just development, but dignity. The battle for the Nile. For Ethiopia, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is sovereignty. For Egypt, it is survival. With over 90% of its fresh water from the Nile, Egypt fears that Ethiopia's control could devastate its agriculture and industry without a binding water release deal. Since construction began in 2011, Egypt has mounted a global diplomatic campaign, while Sudan, once supportive, has grown wary over safety and water management. Despite years of negotiations, the three nations remain locked in deadlock, with the dam a symbol of both national pride and existential threat. What the future holds. With construction complete, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam enters its most critical phase, operation. How Ethiopia manages water releases will shape its energy future and regional politics. Without a binding deal, each decision risks straining relations, yet the dam also offers a chance for cooperation through data sharing, joint monitoring, and electricity trade. More than engineering, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is about ambition, identity, and the balance between sovereignty and shared resources. Whether it becomes a symbol of progress or a source of division will depend less on concrete and more on diplomacy. The Nile has long been both blessing and battleground, and Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam may determine if its future is one of conflict or collaboration. And that brings us to the end of today's deep dive into the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more stories like this, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.